Welcome folks. Today I thought I'd take the time to just go through this Garmin Inreach Explorer. I've had it since last year and it's a unique piece of technology that I now rely on when I go into the backcountry on backpack hunts. Even if you're out doing tramps or walks or camps, it's a good bit of kit that you can use for a number of reasons, but it's a unit that I'm going to use for the GPS function primarily, with the added knowledge that I can put out an SOS if I need to. And that SOS, interestingly enough, it goes to a 24/7 emergency response company based in America. Now they're called GeoS Response, and if I read this correctly, they're an international emergency response coordination centre. They deal with a whole lot of clients across the world, and I'll show you some of the stats in a minute. But essentially what will happen is the Iridium satellite will send an SOS, an emergency signal. It'll get detected by that 24/7 response group that's based in America. Depending on the location that emergency beacon is coming from, they will then notify the relevant authority. So in Australia it's the Australian Maritime Safety Authority, AMSA, and then AMSA would look into the response, the actual physical, putting helicopters in the sky and organising people to get out and search for the person who's activated it. That's in a nutshell. I think there is a time delay. Obviously you're dealing with another country having to liaise as a sort of an in-between man. The American emergency response company has to then liaise with AMSA, and then AMSA has to then get involved, whereas the standard EPIRBs that you get, just the ones that you activate and they go straight to the likes of AMSA, you'll probably get a quicker response time. So bear that in mind. If you are in an emergency and you need help immediately, you might want to still take an emergency beacon as opposed to just rely on the Garmin Inreach. But the thing I really like about the Garmin Inreach is that I can send text messages or SMS messages to my family or friends. It sends the exact location of where I've sent that message, so when I send it, they receive it. It gives them a hyperlink to click on to see where I've sent that message from. And the other great thing is that I can send SMS messages to my other mate who's got, like for instance Andre, who had a Garmin Inreach last year, and Andy had a Garmin Inreach for our October backpack hunt for Samba. When you send those messages to each other, like how are you going, have you seen deer, I'm heading back to camp, or whatever you send to each other, you can see where each other are. So again, the hyperlink, you can click on it, it immediately shows where they sent the message from and it saves it in your cache, which is just a really cool way of communicating and staying in touch while having a spatial understanding of where they are. I mean, two-way radios, you can stay in touch and that's a lot cheaper. UHF are pretty cheap to buy these days, but what you're unsure about is their exact location, whereas these Garmin Inreaches communicate that location each time you send a message. So that's a function I really love about these, and I'm going to go through some of the basic attributes so you can have a look. I'm just going to look through my phone because I can't remember it all off the top of my head. So in the Garmin Inreach subscription plans, there's a few different options. There's essentially 4 options. One's called safety, which is like your bare minimum. The next one's recreation, which has a few more additional features. Expedition is getting more serious and almost is unlimited for everything. And then you've got extreme, and extreme has got unlimited of everything and almost, you know, tracking at 2-minute intervals, which is significantly frequent tracking. I just go the recreation. So what the recreation package gives me is I get unlimited SOS. Obviously if I need to activate it, it's going to let me do that. I get 40 text messages within that package. By the way, that recreation is $55 a month to activate that. So in the month of say May or June, when I next do a backpack hunt, I'll pay that $55 for the month, and with that I'll get 40 text messages that I can send. I can track at 10-minute intervals, so if I set the GPS on active tracking mode and I select who I want that tracking to go to, usually my dad or my wife, my brother, someone who has a keen interest in my whereabouts as I'm out there, I can select it for 10-minute intervals. So each 10 minutes, when this is turned on, it's going to send a signal and it's going to ping back to the Garmin sort of online portal, the user portal, and my parents will be able to see where I am at all times. I can get basic weather, I can get a weather update, and then if I want to pay for a premium weather update, that's $1.50 each time. And then if I go over those 40 SMS text messages, I pay 75 cents per message. Yeah, you do the math and work out whether that's right for you. But if you're a regular outdoor user and you're always relying on the ability to communicate, and you might be in an emergency situation, you probably want to have an annual plan. And an annual plan, and I'm going to put this up so you can see it without me having to read it to you. An annual plan is going to give you a better bang for your buck overall and longer term. But look, the units, I wouldn't say they're cheap. The plans aren't cheap, but what it gives you is the ability to communicate and stay in touch. It saves you having to hire a mountain radio. Mountain radios are big and heavy. I mean, I've used the ones in New Zealand. I'm not sure what they're like in Australia, but they're quite big units. You can get some of the smaller ones as well, but if you want to have that caller functionality where you can call out to a phone number, then you're packing quite a large unit, whereas these small units weigh like 300 grams or 400 grams. They're quite small. It functions as a GPS and obviously an SOS, so it serves a few purposes. It's great. The Explorer is what I've got. Now Andre uses a Mini. I don't know how that Mini operates. I know the Explorer's got all the functions and the Mini's got a few less, but the Mini essentially does all the same things in terms of GPS, SOS and the ability to send text messages, just in a smaller unit, and the battery life is probably a little slower. The great thing with this is that the battery's inbuilt into it, and it's USB chargeable, which means that I can put this on my solar panel or battery bank and charge it when I'm out in the field, which is great. I don't have to carry batteries anymore, or even worse still, dock it into a docking station as being the only method of charging. So it's got a, I'll show you here, it's got a USB portal just in here, which is excellent. I think it takes a micro USB. Yeah, micro USB. They're durable. I mean, I've had this out in the rain. It's been on here, getting bumped around. I mean, the great thing about Garmin is I've had Garmin since 1995. The E-Treks, the 12-channel ones, since the 90s, and they're still working now. So the thing with Garmin is they build stuff to last, and I've got no qualms in recommending Garmin. I guess I should also just highlight too that I'm in no way affiliated, I'm not sponsored. I've chosen this product because of my own research and I'm happy with it, and I'll continue to use it, and if people ask, yeah, I'd highly recommend it. Alright, I'm going to run through a couple of these settings. So it's really easy to turn on. You turn it on up here, you can toggle. It's got a great toggle ability, up and down, left and right. It's the great thing about Garmin is they're so intuitive. You know, you don't have to read the manual to be able to navigate your way around. It brings open the first, I guess, screen, which is a series of options. Now if I click on the top left, which is preset, those are all my preset messages, and I've got them ready to go, saying a specific discrete message that I cannot change. I cannot change the preset messages once I'm in the field. You have to do that back at home when you log into the web-based interface, because there's a web-based interface that allows you to make changes to your plan, update your contact details, change who your distribution lists are, even pre-plan locations that you want to go through, and place markers on a map. And then when you sync it to your GPS unit, all of that information that you've been working on online gets synced into this unit. So it's actually a really simple system once you get logged into it. I had a few troubles getting logged into it because I just didn't read the instructions, and I just thought, yeah, okay, I'll just set up an account, and there was a few steps you had to do that, which I don't plan on going through. But just YouTube it, because there's been a lot of people say it's not the most intuitive process to get an account set up. But once you got the account set up, the syncing to your to your unit from the website is fine, and you got to buy you got to download a particular app to be that interface. But anyway, So yep, those are the preset messages. Tracking, I have used tracking just around Perth. I haven't used tracking when I'm out in the field, mainly because I don't need someone to track me. If I was going to be doing some sort of, I don't know, like a running event or an event where I want people to monitor my situation at all times, or maybe do that through social media as a way to like promote where you are or what you're doing and get people to follow you along on that journey, you could do an active tracking. You could send that link to your Instagram account or your Facebook, and that's a way for people to follow along on the journey. You can set the tracking at different time intervals, so obviously the higher frequency that the transmissions are happening, the more likely you're going to run your battery down. You can look at routes, so if you have it turned on and you want to look at what your route path was, let's say it's getting dark at night, you've navigated your way up through a tricky section of bluffs during the day, and you want to come back down through that or that spur or that ridge line, or cross that particular river that might be a bit deep in other places. You can use what your track was, the cache from your tracks, if you haven't saved the locations along your way, which often you won't because it's quite labour intensive to keep putting in pins and saving it. Then you can follow your track. Yep, you got messages as an option, so this is obviously if you want to create new messages and you can send those to anyone. All I'd suggest is just remember the phone numbers for people that you want to send messages to. Waypoints is very similar to any other GPS. You basically create a new waypoint, you can name it however you want, you can give it a particular icon, put a stag or a deer on it if it's a location where there's deer, put a vehicle if it's a vehicle and whatnot, so that's pretty good. You can look at the weather. Look, the weather's really basic, and I wouldn't actually rely on this weather anyway. I'd do all your weather planning before you go into the hills, and maybe use as a preset message, which is what I do to my dad, is can you give me a weather update, and then Dad will send me a message back with the weather update. Then you've got the map, which is just live map tracking for where you are in space and time. The map layer that comes with this GPS is very basic and is not what I would consider a standard 1 in 50 topo map. It doesn't have the isobar, sorry, the contours at 20 metre contours. Yeah, the detail's lacking for me, but I never use my GPS as a way to know where I am on a map, if that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is I know where I am by looking at a real map that I take with me, a laminated map. I use a compass, I'm all pretty old school. I know where I am pretty much most of the time. It's only if it's dark and I can't find the ridge that I need to get onto, then I'll use the GPS, but usually what I'll be doing is going to a waypoint that I've already selected and saved from earlier in the day for that particular known location. So the GPS for me, mapping function is not really relevant, but if you want to get new map layers you can pay for those. I'm not even sure what those options are, but you can. You can look at your trip information if you want to understand how fast you've been moving, how much distance you've covered, what your elevation is that you've covered, and some basic stats. I don't use that. Oh look, you can even look at your data data use. So I've sent 150 messages. Okay, that's probably why it cost me quite a bit. You can look at your compass, which tells you obviously where you're heading at a particular point in time. Again, I just rely on a normal compass, but it's good to know you've got that as an option. And it keeps auto updating. It's not like you have to keep walking forward for it to then work and re-track where you were. This compass does seem to, I could turn like this and it will tell me that north is still in that direction, you know. And then you've got your SOS function. I'm not even going to press that. There's a contacts list. You can look at your location, you can look at your history, and it looks like you can do a test. That GeoS Response company in America, in terms of the level of global support and services that they provide to other clients, I mean, they've been operating since 2007. They were the first Iridian satellite-based emergency monitoring company to establish themselves in 2007, and they have the largest market of clients that need, I guess, monitoring of emergency services. This is according to GeoS Response's website, which is just what I'm looking at. So they've responded or helped respond to or provide a service for 53,000 incidents since 2007, and that's through till December 2018. They've helped coordinate, as a response coordination centre, 9,000 of those incidents, and they've worked in 165 countries in the world, and they've currently got 634,000 customers and counting. So from my perspective, I wouldn't necessarily rule out that the Garmin Inreach is not a reliable emergency monitoring service. I still personally, and this is just me personally, okay, I am in no way suggesting that people take my advice as gospel, but I'm okay relying on the Garmin Inreach as my emergency response device. I've decided that the way that I'm going to use my device is that I'll send preset messages, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Preset messages, which are free. I can send as many of those as I want to my mate or my partner or my family or my dad. He's the person that I'd rely on to make sure AMSA get out there as fast as they can. I would also then rip that off, the SOS button, and I'd set that off. But at least I know that there's one human being in the world that's my biggest advocate, is going to be on the phone to any of those emergency services groups to ensure that they are mobilising. And I'm willing to take that gamble that there might be half an hour, there might be 20 minutes, there might be an hour of coordination delay with it being received in America, them working out the location, working out who it needs to be directed to in terms of the response agency being AMSA for Australia. But I'm okay with that. And if it's a terrible incident where I'm going to die within minutes, then unfortunately no EPIRB is going to help me either. So yeah, that's how I'm going to run with it.